July 13th. Would you join me in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Okay. Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Do we have any public announcements?
Hello, everyone. If you are joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are up on your screen. If you're joining us in person, we will have closed captioning on all the screens here in the Sophie Marie's room, and we also have assisted listening devices available. Please come to me if you would like one, and I'll get one for you. We ask that all speakers today remember to speak slowly and clearly during the meeting. This helps with the accuracy of the closed captioning. There will be multiple chances during the meeting for public comment virtually. During those times, if you would like to speak, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. If you are in Microsoft Teams, this is a small hand button. If you are calling in on the phone, you need to hit *5 to raise your hand. Then once called on, you will need to hit *6 to unmute. If you have any questions or concerns, please find me during the meeting and let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an ADA proclamation. Sure.
Whereas disability is a natural part of the human experience and more than 13% of Missoula County residents live with one or more disabilities, and whereas 33 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the first comprehensive declaration of civil rights for people with disabilities prohibiting discrimination based solely on one's disability status, became law on July 26, 1990. And whereas the ADA has expanded opportunities for Americans living with disabilities to participate in mainstream aspects of American life, pursuing employment opportunities, purchase goods and services, and be treated as equal and valued members of society. And whereas Missoula County recognizes that more work is needed to realize the full potential of the ADA to ensure equal access in all areas of life for people living with disabilities. And whereas Missoula County recognizes that community participation by individuals with disabilities is vital to the success of our communities and remains steadfast in its commitment to the principles of equality, the goals of the ADA, and reaffirms its dedication to fully implement the ADA. Now, therefore, we, the Missoula County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim July 26, 2023 as a day to commemorate the 33rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in Missoula County, Montana, and recognize the hard work and sacrifices of disability advocates and policymakers who have worked tirelessly to ensure people living with disabilities have access to the same rights and opportunities as everyone else, and to reaffirm our commitment to fully implement the ADA. We dedicate ourselves and encourage all citizens to commit to fulfilling the promise of the ADA for a more fair, accessible, and interconnected community.
Thanks, Dave. All right, our current claims list. These are claims received as of June 13th, 2023 to July 6th, 2023 by the Commissioner's Office. Total, $8,610,878.80. Okay, today we have 5 hearings. The first one is on the West Bonner Log Yard subdivision, and Bailey Minich will present.
Give me 1 second here. Hopefully it's pulling up. Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Bailey Minich, the planner with Planning Development and Sustainability, for the record. I am presenting the West Bonner Log Yard major subdivision request this afternoon. Hopefully, let me get to the right slide here. There we go. So the subject property we're going to talk about today is highlighted in yellow on the screen. It is located near Highway 200, adjacent to First Street and Anaconda Street, out in the Milltown Bonner area, with the Blackfoot River along its southern property line. So this is a major subdivision request for 27 industrial lots and 1 residential lot on approximately a little over 116 acres total. It is made up of 2 parcels for that total 116 acres. It is adjacent to federal and state lands that are located along the eastern and northeastern property lines. Proposed access for the majority of the lots will be an extension of the internal subdivision road. All lots will be served by individual wells or a multi-user or community system, internal community system. There is 1 existing building on the property that is proposed to remain on Lot 2. There are no variances requested with the project, and they also are proposing a phasing plan for the subdivision. And this is the proposed subdivision layout. I have some more screenshots later that I'll talk about, but this is kind of the general overview of the property that show all 28 total lots on here. So when we go through subdivision proposals, we have a list of review criteria that come out of state law as well as our local subdivision regulations. I'm going to hit the high points of all of these, but really it's zoning, growth policy, impacts to ag, access roads, pedestrian facilities, water sanitation, parks and rec, fire department, and natural environment. So the subject property, it is under the 2016, the 2019 Missoula County Land Use Element, which is an amendment to our 2016 Missoula County Growth Policy. It is split between 2 growth policy designations. There is the industrial portion of the subdivision that's described as heavy industrial center, and that's in that kind of dark gray area. The goals of heavy industrial are to contribute to the county's economic base, providing places for people to manufacture, process, store, distribute goods, that kind of thing. And then there's also a small portion towards the rear that's in that green kind of box, right? Let me put my laser pointer on, then you can see it in this area here. And that is designated as working lands under our growth policy designation. And that's supposed to be areas provided opportunities for rural lifestyles, generate income from natural amenities, protect fish, wildlife habitat areas. And so the zoning on the property matches the growth policy designations. Oops, flipped too far. It is split between 3, I lost it, sorry. It is split between 3 different zoning designations. So there is industrial center light, which is this light gray area up here at the top. The dark is industrial center heavy. And then the AGW or agricultural working 40, which is like a 40-acre minimum lot size, matches that area that was designated as the working lands. The industrial center light, this area up here, does have a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet, and the industrial center heavy, this size down here, has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. They are meeting both of those. They're actually bigger than that. All intended uses on the proposed lots must comply with the zoning regulations. The portion of the subdivision, this lot here, or this parcel back here in the back, that is the portion intended for residential use. All of lot 28 will encompass that ag or AGW 40 designation. So that lot will match that designation. So there won't become a lot that's split zoned with the proposed subdivision. Okay, so I have this slide up. I know there's a lot of information. I'm going to go through some of, I'll identify it with my little laser pointer what I'm talking about, but I was going to leave this slide up for the majority of the discussion so you can see it. Next criteria, roads. So First Street is here, and Anaconda Street is here. Those are off-site roads that are uniquely attributable to the subdivision, but they do have paved surface widths between 22 to 24 feet and are within 60 to 80 foot wide public rights of way. West Riverside Drive is up here as well. It is actually both an on-site and off-site road because the property, it's kind of splits, the right of way actually splits this parcel. Cowboy Trail is proposed, or it's existing here. It's going to be relocated. It is the internal subdivision road that connects all the way down here. It will be the on-site road. It's proposed to be upgraded to 32 feet paved surface width within a 60-foot private right-of-way. Flying Main Lane and Cowpoke Road here, these two coming off, are proposed to extend off Cowboy Trail within the subdivision and also be constructed to 32-foot paved widths within 60-foot wide private rights of way as well. The industrial lots 1 through 25 will all have direct physical and legal access from this internal subdivision road. Lots 26 and 27 here, this lot and this lot down here, will actually access off of Anaconda Street instead. Lots 1, this one here that kind of goes like this, and lot 25 here are both considered through lots because they have roads on all sides of them. But they are proposing a 1 foot wide, no access strip on the preliminary plat adjacent to the frontages of Anaconda Street and First Street here to make it so that those lots have to access off of the internal subdivision road. Major subdivisions within the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, are required to have more than one access route for emergency services. The subdivision will include an emergency access only route from the end of Cowpoke Road here that will connect across lots 8 and 9 here that will connect to West Riverside Drive. We are proposing a condition that this emergency access route be required prior to the filing of phase 1, which ends right here. This is the phasing line. I should have mentioned that here, so that that emergency access route is installed with phase 1 for the whole future development. So even phase 1 will be compliant with that standard. Additionally, the emergency access road must be paved since it is within the Missoula air stagnation zone. A traffic study was prepared for the subdivision since the proposal is for industrial or commercial developments. At full build out per the subdivision application, it's anticipated the industrial portion of the subdivision would contribute a total daily increase of 1,983 trips. The residential portion would be an average of 9 trips. The traffic impact study concluded that the subdivision would not negatively impact traffic operations at any of the study intersections, and that traffic to and from the subdivision would operate at an acceptable level of service. So no changes to the roadway network are required at this time. Pedestrian facilities. So major subdivisions are required to provide pedestrian facilities. The applicant is proposing to construct an 8-foot wide sidewalk within the industrial portion of the subdivision adjacent to each of the roads. And sidewalks will be on one side of the road. So the regulations either require 5 feet on both sides or 8 feet on one side. And so they're proposing that 8 feet on one side for the greatest number of lots, to serve the greatest number of lots. Additionally, there is a trail that ends right down here as you're headed towards Anaconda Street and the Milltown Park. While it's not directly adjacent, the proposed subdivision is extending an 8-foot wide sidewalk along the entire frontage of First Street here. And also along the other side of Anaconda Street to facilitate non-motorized access. The trail, it's not a required element of the subdivision because they're doing sidewalks inside on the internal subdivision road. And it's not, these sidewalks along First Street and Anaconda aren't uniquely attributable to the subdivision. So we have no conditions of approval recommended for those off-site trails. The subdivision also is proposing, and I think if I get it going to the next slide here, and my Teams is in the way. The subdivision also is proposing a 20-foot wide non-motorized access easement within Common Area 1, which is down here. So we're at the very southern part of the property adjacent to the river. And you can kind of see it here. This is a non-motorized access. I'm trying to do it with my mouse here. You can see where it is. Non-motorized access easement within Common Area 1 through the common area adjacent to the Blackfoot River, all the way across to the rear property that would connect with two 60-foot wide non-motorized access easements on the residential lot that provide access to the state of Montana and national forest lands on the other side of the project. So those 60-foot wide access easements already exist, and this proposed trail would connect to that. Oops. Sorry, it's like I click off of it and then I can't click my slide. Okay, so back to the main picture here. Water and sanitation, the lots are under 20 acres in size, so therefore they have to go through sanitation and subdivision review. The residential lot, lot 28, is actually greater than 20 acres in size, and so it actually is exempt. It's the one lot that's exempt from sanitation. But the proposed subdivision is proposing a combination of individual drain fields and multi-user drain field systems. And there you can see, I believe there's 3 multi-user systems. There's one here, here, and then further off to the back. And then there's a number of individual ones as well. The applicant is also proposing to install dry laid sewer pipes within the internal subdivision road to facilitate future connections, either to the City of Missoula municipal sewer system or a potential community wastewater system. And just for the record, they're not proposing the community system at this time. They just want to make sure if there is one, the sewer lines are already installed and then you don't have to rip the road up again. So just for the record, though.
Bailey, so,
Yeah.
And maybe y'all will get into this later. If there were to be some future community system, would that be contemplated on this site or somewhere else?
Not necessarily. Yeah, that would happen. I mean, that would be a discussion
Is
at
there
the future.
is there adequate? Well, we can get into that later.
Yeah, I'll let
Okay.
Jamie.
Okay.
Jamie can,
Thank you.
I'm sure, can address that here in a minute. But good question. The one lot, lot 27 down here, no new water or wastewater facilities are proposed to serve that lot, since that is the property that has the closed landfill that was for the organic wood waste that was part of the original mill site. And so that requires a DEQ sanitation lifting prior to development. So that's the one lot that's not shown with anything at this time. Existing well logs show there's adequate groundwater to serve the development. Individual wells are proposed for each lot for their individual water supply. The proposed subdivision will utilize exempt wells during their initial development, and then they are in the process of procuring additional water rights. So we actually have a condition of approval that those proposed water rights shall be obtained prior to being able to final phase 2 file plat. So they have enough water rights for phase 1, but prior to phase 2, they will need to show that they have that additional water rights in order to continue the development of the subdivision. The proposed subdivision is exempt from parkland dedication requirements because it includes non-residential lots, and then the single residential lot is greater than 5 acres in size, so it's exempt from the parkland dedication requirements as well. The fire hazard assessment completed for the property returned a score of 33, which indicates a low risk for fire hazard risk on the property. Fire suppression is proposed to be provided through there's one existing on-site fire hydrant, and then they're proposing 5 new hydrants as well along the internal subdivision road. I know you cannot see it on this picture, but they're like little tiny spots on here. 4 of the hydrants will be located along Cowboy Trail, and then 1 new hydrant will be located off Anaconda Street. The applicant is also choosing to require all new buildings to include fire sprinkler systems in addition to the hydrants. So subdivision regulations requires them to pick one. They're actually picking two as their proposal. And we do have a recommended condition that requires those plans and installation of the hydrants to be reviewed by Missoula Rural Fire as well. Let's see here. As I mentioned, the subdivision is located adjacent to public lands to the east and Forest Service to the north and northeast. It is adjacent to the Blackfoot River and within the Blackfoot River corridor, so therefore a wide range of animal species are known to utilize the site, but no critical habitat for species of concern were identified and no further impacts to wildlife habitat beyond the current industrial levels anticipated. It's been industrial for years, so there's no new impacts that were associated. The property, as I said, since it's adjacent to the Blackfoot River, there is an associated riparian resource protection area, as well as our riparian resource buffer that came under our, I say new zoning codes, but they've been in for a year now. And so they have submitted a riparian resource management plan that does identify the protection area and the buffer and outlines permitted and prohibited uses within each of those areas. And no structures are either existing or proposed within either of the protection area or the buffer on the property. As one note, I think I see it in this one, there is this parcel right here. This parcel is not part of the subdivision. It's kind of out there in the back. That is owned by Northwestern Energy, and it does include an existing substation that obviously it is within the buffer area, but it's a different parcel and it's not, nothing's changing with that with this case. I guess I'll just leave this slide up here because it does talk about the riparian plan does talk about this trail. As I mentioned, that was along within Common Area 1, and that is within the buffer and for recreational use to connect to Milltown State Park. The trail will be at least 50 feet from the ordinary high water mark, which is in accordance with the 310 permitting laws, and is therefore located outside of the protection area. The protection area is a 50-foot setback from the high water mark. And so therefore it appears to meet the requirements of the zoning regulations as well. And so there's no conditions are proposed. I would say we are proposing a condition that the riparian resource plan be attached to the covenants so that it is easy to find for future property owners to know what can and cannot happen within that area. Back here, there is a high pressure gas line that runs through the parcel here. That's this kind of dashed area that goes up here. The preliminary plat does designate this area as a no-build zone and references it on the plat. Also, there is some mapped floodway that is located adjacent to the Blackfoot River down in here. It's really hard to see on the tiny screen, unfortunately. Those are all shown as no-build zones as well. And then there is an area here on the residential lot in the back that does contain areas of slopes greater than 25%. And so all of those areas are also shown as no build zone here. So this lot does have a buildable area here for a house. Otherwise, the majority of that lot is pretty much no build zone. Let's see here. There's also some landscape berms that are up here along West Riverside Drive, as well as down here along Anaconda Street. And those are all proposed to be shown as no build zones and berm protection as well to kind of maintain that separation between residential and industrial uses. Let's see. Groundwater monitoring was completed, showed no evidence of high groundwater. I think that is the last I had of the criteria to hit you. So we did, obviously agencies were notified and And most of the comments, again, it's been an industrial lot or industrial subdivision before. It's maintaining its industrial subdivision or industrial uses. We did post a legal ad in the paper twice. We mailed adjacent property owners. I put 2 posters on site. I believe one is still up. One might have gotten blown down. We posted the project on the Missoula County Voice page. We had 4 comments that were received through Missoula County Voice, and that report was attached to the packet. And then I've had 1 additional comment that came in that I believe Cheryl sent out to you guys today. And I can go over those comments if you would like. They were in the packet if you needed to. But otherwise, oh gosh, keep clicking off of it. Otherwise, the project did go before the planning board on June 20th. There were 9 members present. There was no public in attendance. The board voted unanimously to recommend approval. And so I do have a proposed motion, and I know Jamie has a presentation and can answer more questions as well, but I'm happy to answer anything at this moment that you might have.
Thanks, Bailey.
Hey, Bailey, I
Please.
do have a quick question. Cowpoke Road is in phase 2, but it will all be completed as part of phase 1. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the emergency access part. So basically there's, if you can see kind of on the slide here, this is a temporary cul-de-sac that's right where phase 1 and phase 2 will end. And then there will be, so the Cowboy Trail that connects to Cowpoke Road and out won't be constructed probably to the full road width, but it'll be constructed to the emergency access width. And that this part of it will continue to remain after phase 2 comes in. So yeah, so we are requiring at least an emergency access route through here.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Bailey, I haven't had a chance to check my email today. What was the 1 additional comment that we received?
I can do that. So it was basically reaffirming Gary Madsen's comments that he had submitted through Missoula County Voice. And then most of it was related to like tax funding and issues potentially with inflated cost and supply and construction, and just kind of wondering if this is the right time to be doing an industrial subdivision on this property. And then the other part was about kind of the water and wastewater, like a community system in the West Riverside, which again is separate from this discussion of the subdivision, but just wondering about how that would happen and the cost of that and how that would deal with the subdivision, which again is separate from the request.
Bailey, thanks for the clear and thorough description. Appreciate it. Jamie, do you want to speak to this?
All right. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Bailey, for that staff report. Jamie Erbacher with WGM for the record. Also with me virtually is Jeff Smith at WGM.
Jamie, sorry, this is Jeff
Yep.
Smith, WGM Group. I have a presentation to present. I'll need to be promoted to a presenter so that I can share the screen for Jamie's presentation.
We like promoting people here.
Jeff, is your share button grayed out?
It's grayed out currently. Big plan. Cheryl could,
You can send to my email and I can share my screen.
are you not able to promote B2 presenter?
I cannot. Or a Bailey, can you?
There we go. Somebody got me. Thank you.
Okay. Oh.
There we
Nice.
go. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thanks, Jeff. So as Bailey mentioned, 28 lot subdivision in the West Riverside neighborhood. So here I just want to start off with some of the basics, the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. So Bob Wolfenden, he is the representative of Flying Colors Group, and he's also our client. He lives in Stevensville and owns several properties in Bitterroot and a few in Missoula County. He has over 70 different tenant groups and a core competency in this type of development. He has successfully been leasing the existing building to CBS Viacom for production of filming of Yellowstone, and he is currently working to subdivide this land for future industrial uses. Some of these uses are going to be light industrial, while others will be heavy industrial, with the exception of the one residential lot. The sale and utilization of these lots will hinge on the private agreement that Bob currently has with CBS, but we do foresee that the subdivision will be platted within the next year. There is potential for some industrial land to be utilized while the terms of the contract are still in place. The proposed subdivision is surrounded by dense residential to the north, undeveloped tracts of land to the west, the Blackfoot River to the south, and open lands to the east. West Riverside Drive borders the subdivision to the north, First Street to the west, and Anaconda Street to the southwest. The 116-acre property has mostly been undeveloped for years. In the mid-70s, it was zoned for industrial uses. When the Stimson Mill operation was underway, this was a log yard for the mill. Since the closure of the mill, the wood waste material has been scraped and capped into a pile in the southwest corner of the proposed subdivision, which we call Lot 27. In 2014, a building was erected and occupied for a number of years by Harris Thermal, and now is currently being used by Yellowstone. Eric Growing, the prior owner of the property, had previously considered an industrial subdivision for this property. However, given his situation and finances at the time, he was unable to successfully develop this subdivision and since sold the property to Bob, our current client. Bonner was identified as one of 3 areas in Missoula County capable of facilitating meaningful industrial development through Missoula County's industrial land assessment. As a result of this lands assessment, a TED, or a Targeted Economic Development District, was created for the property in 2014. The TED will allow tax increment that's collected in the future to go towards public infrastructure needs. As the subdivision progressed, and we have been in touch with several agencies, including the Missoula Development Authority, Missoula Fire, Northwestern Energy, FWP, County Public Works, the Health Department, and County Parks. Next slide, Jeff. In addition to the agency coordination that I just mentioned, a neighborhood meeting was held on March 9th of 2022. This neighborhood meeting was extremely helpful, not only for us, but I also believe helpful for the community. There were 9 primary topics that the neighbors were interested in hearing about, and those included annexation, the concern about connecting to city services, noise, additional covenant restrictions, the intensity of industrial uses near the West Riverside neighborhood, industrial uses being located too close to the Blackfoot River, water quality and water quantity, the need for walkways adjacent to the subdivision, and access to public lands along the east side of the property. We were able to assure the community that the property would not be annexed into the city and that sewer and water were not going to be extended to the subdivision. The future covenants will be associated with this development, and since the property is zoned, all future development will need to comply with the noise standards of the county zoning resolution. When we originally met with the neighborhood, all of this property was planned to be designated as heavy industrial. And as we were having this conversation with the neighborhood, we learned that really they didn't want heavy industrial next to them, which makes sense as a residential neighborhood. And through communication with our clients and county staff during the zoning process, we were able to essentially downzone the northerly lots to light industrial and give them a little bit more of a buffer. We realized that they probably would have liked to seen a commercial buffer next to their residential neighborhood. However, we had to maintain compliance with the 2019 land use element and the TED that was in place. But again, through communication with county staff, we did successfully downzone that to a light industrial buffer for those northern lots on that subdivision. As part of this neighborhood outreach, we also learned that a buffer to the Blackfoot River was highly important to the community and that a trail along the Blackfoot corridor would be ideal. So as such, we've provided a future trail easement that will run parallel to the Blackfoot River, and we are continually working with county parks and FWP on a future dedication agreement and maintenance plan for the trail. So in the end, the trail will be dedicated to FWP and provide a future connection from the Milltown State Park trail system to the public lands to the east. The walkway that Bailey mentioned along First Street, that's been a high priority for the West Riverside neighborhood for quite some time. I believe it was even prior to the light being installed at the intersection of First Street and Highway 200. So as such, while not required with this subdivision, we are going to provide that walkway on the east side of First Street. Water quantity and water quality were also concerns from the neighbors. We heard that after the Bonner Dam was removed, the static water levels decreased for the West Riverside neighbors. Gary Matson in particular, he provided public comment to this effect and had asked about future monitoring. And so based on these comments, we are open to installing a monitoring well to ensure that the water levels are maintained. Overall and in the big picture, this is something that we have been considering as part of our application and that will ultimately need to be approved by DEQ prior to filing the plat. Bailey had mentioned some of the dry sewer that's going to be laid, and Dave, you had a question about potential sites. Jeff and the engineering team, they are looking at different sites on the property where that community sewer system may go. So if you have additional questions, we can go into that. The next outreach was to the Missoula Development Authority. At this meeting, we discussed the overall subdivision layout, the future improvements that could be funded by the TED, and the benefits to the community. Overall, the development was supported by the MDA, and they encouraged us to move forward as planned. 2 months after the neighborhood meeting and the MDA meeting, we attended the Bonner Community Council meeting. And as you can see, there were a number of the same topics that came up at the neighborhood meeting that came up at the community council meeting. The 2 additional topics, though, included the future of the trees that are on site and the future of the junk vehicles along the West Riverside Drive in that common area. So while the future of the trees isn't completely known at this time, we know that some are going to need to be removed for road construction and building site construction. We hope that the future owners see the value in these trees. However, given the industrial nature of the subdivision, it's highly likely that a good portion of them could be removed from the site, with exception to lot 28, which is the residential lot. And Bailey had noted where the residential site location will be. And that area there is fairly clear of trees. So we don't anticipate that, again, several trees are going to need to be removed on that lot 28. The junk vehicles along the southern edge of West Riverside Drive have been an issue for as long as I can remember. However, Bob, our client, he's taken the initiative to remove these vehicles and relocate the fence to prevent future dumping on the property and then sightliness that the West Riverside neighbors currently or previously had seen.
Jamie, has that been successful in terms of keeping junk vehicles off that
I
stretch?
think it's been fairly successful. I think there's still been a few here and there, but Bob's trying to stay on top of it.
Great.
So as we look at the overall subdivision plan, we can begin to see the benefits to the community. Not only will this subdivision provide an opportunity for increased jobs, we see an opportunity for the West Riverside Live Make neighborhood to move their incubator business or to move into incubator spaces within this subdivision. Not only furthers the economic development for our local Missoulians. We have an extensive 15-acre buffer to the Blackfoot River that's all part of a common area, and that area will include the future trail to the Milltown State Park and the public lands to the east. We have the walkway planned along First Street that will connect the West Riverside neighborhood to the commercial areas south of Highway 200, both of which have been a highly desired by the community. So this next slide here, this just shows a clearer vision and view of what the sidewalks, trail easements, and walkways will look like that are associated with this subdivision. The berms that exist along West Riverside, First Street, and Anaconda Street are going to remain, as Bailey mentioned, with the exception of lot 26 and 27. There will need to be one cutout on each lot for access purposes. These berms will help reduce the visual impacts on the neighborhood and reduce the sound coming from future industrial uses. There's going to be an improved intersection at Cowboy Trail and Old Highway 10. The uses proposed with this subdivision are not likely to increase traffic within the residential neighborhood. And the direct connection to Highway 10 and 200 will also help with traffic concerns and connections. So now that I've kind of hit on some of the benefits of the subdivision, there's a few items that we did need to take into consideration with regards to hazards. The high pressure gas line that bisects the subject property diagonally. This gas line is proposed to be centered within a utility easement and protected. Additional potential hazards include the Northwestern Energy Substation and the closed landfill. The substation is proposed to remain on its own parcel. Overhead power lines do exist within the common area, and easements will be maintained for Northwestern Energy access and for the utility lines themselves. The closed landfill that will remain until there's a suitable use that is proposed for lot 27. And again, this is just simply a wood waste material and it's not necessarily hazardous. However, it is expensive to remove and that's why it's not been taken care of to this date. The land is mapped with a moderate fire hazard rating. The wildfire hazard rating is based on the likelihood of a fire occurring at this location and the probable intensity of a fire if it were to occur. To reduce the risk, the subdivision will incorporate more than 2 primary roads over 20 feet in width with a grade of less than 5%. Street signs are currently present within this area and additional signs will be posted for new streets. And then dry hydrants and cisterns are also planned with this subdivision. The subdivision, as Bailey mentioned, has minimal FEMA mapped floodplain within its boundaries. However, it, as well as the riparian area, will all be within a common area and are not proposed to be disturbed. We've reviewed staff's proposed staff's proposed conditions of approval and have no issues or concerns. And again, you know, if a monitoring well is something that's desired by the commission, we would be acceptable to that as an additional condition. So to that concludes my presentation, but if you have any questions or technical questions, we can answer those.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Hey, Jamie, before you go sit down. So a couple questions. First, as far as the emergency access goes, how do you propose to control that?
We're going to work with Missouri Fire on what that looks like. It might be a gated lock that they have access and a key to. It's not going to be something that's regularly accessed by the industrial lots, though.
Okay. And secondly, Bailey mentioned that there were a couple, if I was hearing correctly, a couple existing access easements at the, I guess, the eastern edge of the property. Is that correct? And can you expand on that? Just
yeah, so those are existing non-motorized access easements for FWP. And so those will be maintained. We may need to work with them to do a little bit of updating to them to allow for that non-motorized access for the general public, but otherwise they're, and excuse me, I guess they're non-motorized for public currently, but allow motorized access by FWP.
So what was the history on those, since I'm assuming there's no way for the public to actually get to those access easements without trespassing again across the property. Is that correct?
Yeah, it seems historically as though the public has technically trespassed, but Bob sees the benefit in allowing the public to access across the property legally. And so rather than coming through the middle of the subdivision, we would provide that access along the southern border near the river now, and then continue to allow motorized access only for FWP.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It is great. I commend you all for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any
No,
public
since we're
comment?
commending, I
Sorry,
just
Juan.
want, no worries, just wanted to add gratitude and thanks for working with the neighbors and the community and hearing them out and addressing their concerns. I think this is a great example.
And one other thing I'd like to add would be the benefit to the TED. This is going to mean a lot more increment, which could mean some really fantastic infrastructure improvements, which could be life-changing for the folks who live in the West Riverside neighborhood. That's our hope. Any other public comment on this? Please, Dave.
Hi, Dave Westfall. Just a question for Jamie. When the current zoning is for heavy industrial, light industrial, some residential. Before that, how long was it zoned for heavy industrial?
Mid-70s.
Mid-70s. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Sure, thanks, Dave. Anyone else, you're welcome to ask a question. Okay, we could entertain a motion.
I do have one more.
Oh,
question.
please, go ahead.
Bailey, can you speak to the monitoring well point? Jamie mentioned, so is it correct that it is not currently a condition of approval, but you said you were open to it? So pros and cons of.
I'm probably not.
Jamie,
the
do you
best-
wanna-
I know, I'm like, I'm probably not the best person to ask, or maybe, yeah, Jeff
Jeff's
might
on
know
the line,
too.
Yeah, let's turn that one to Jeff.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Jeff Smith with WGM Group. So the request from Gary Matson was to install a monitoring well so that groundwater levels could be monitored. And that was in response to what folks noted when the Milltown Dam was removed and the static water level dropped. So there's some concern that additional water use on this site leads to that water table dropping further. Looking at transmissivity and conductivity of the aquifer here, it seems to be a fairly prolific aquifer. So we don't expect there to be a drop in the water table based on the somewhat modest uses that we'd expect from this type of industrial development. So the thought of installing a monitoring well to observe water levels over time sounds like a good move to us. If it's something that perhaps the Water Quality District could add to their monitoring network, I think that'd be a benefit for everyone. So sounds like a good idea to us. If that were applied as a condition, we would welcome it.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, that does seem like a prudent thing. John or Bailey, I'm never a fan of just coming up with language on the fly. Is this can we approve to that or agree to that concept today and work out the language after the fact, or?
I don't know.
And
Basically, it would be to require a monitoring well.
and let's say we just, for talking it through purposes, if we didn't make this a condition of approval, would these folks be able to do a monitoring well if they wanted to?
Yeah, I
Would
would.
they have to go through DNRC
Yeah,
or something like that?
And so I guess, so part of it, yes, the condition, if we're going to put a condition on it, would need to be done today because this is the final meeting. So we can't, it's not like we can bring it back and
Sure.
without tabling the item. So ultimately conditions are supposed to go back to impacts of the subdivision. So that would be my one thing is it's not,
Isn't
the
it?
monitoring well isn't really a condition. It's not an impact from the subdivision condition. So I guess that would be my one hesitancy about making it a condition of approval is tying it back to findings of fact. Like there's no evidence of of issues with groundwater but we can do it. I'm not saying it's not. That would be my one, I guess, concern about making it a condition. But yes, to answer your point, Dave, is even if it's not a condition, they can do that. It is private property. I mean, they can put a monitoring well out
Jeff's
there.
got his hand up.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff Smith. One thing I was going to add, the comments relative to sanitation and water will be included in our submittal to the DEQ for their review in accordance with the Sanitation and Subdivisions Act. I think by making the statement that we would entertain or will install a monitoring well in this hearing, will be that statement will be included in our submittal to DEQ. So there's some assurance that we can get a monitoring well installed based on us providing the statement at the hearing today, and then also including that in our DEQ submittal.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, so really it's kind of outside of the subdivision review, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Dave, you had an expression on your face. How do you feel about this?
I try not to have expressions on my face usually. It was a slip up on my part. Bailey, what is the motion? Can you
Let me-
cue it up?
Yep, I'm doing that. Hold on. That's like really hard to see, isn't that?
All right.
Is that better?
Thanks. And first off, thanks to Jamie and Jeff and WGM for your work on this. So I would move that we approve the West Bonner Log Yard subdivision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
All right. Do we have any more public comment? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Slotnick, we forgot to ask for public comment on items not on the agenda. Considering we have 23 plus people in video land,
Are you sure I did that?
I'm almost certain, but I'm wrong every day.
All right. If anybody would like to speak to anything, we will gladly take public comment on anything. And I apologize for
On
not
items
hitting that
On items not
on items not on the agenda. I apologize on not hitting that earlier. So anybody's welcome to speak to anything. Sir.
Give us a little insight on where wastewater treatment facilities could go at net near that new subdivision that was just approved.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm Bruce Troutwine, 401 Dixon Avenue. I have land within a half a mile on West Riverside Drive of that property, and encourage the use of industrial lands for industrial economics and jobs to hopefully help my family and future out there. So I'm also curious about infrastructure in the area there as well. I know there's some discussion about it, and I'm a little late at the game. And I know Jeff Smith is pretty knowledgeable on the hydraulics out there, and if there's a possible location that he would recommend, a small treatment facility or clustered facilities there, or Jamie maybe can help out as well. And the proposed pipe that was to go into the roadway, I was curious where it would start and where it would end and what direction it would be going.
Is Jeff still on? Great.
Yeah, hi, everyone. So I think there are a couple sites that might work for a community system on the West Bonner Log Yard. Both would be in phase 2, either on the far east side or in that generally in the eastern area, the southern side of the road. We're looking at a couple different options that certainly entertain a conversation around a community system in that area, and be interested in talking with you about that, Bruce. As far as the grade of the sewer main, right now we're planning on that grade generally heading towards the west. So high grade being on the east end of the site, low grade being towards the west. If we had a community system that we were able to create on the site, I think the grade of that sewer main certainly flexible. Likely that we would have an advanced level of treatment where we may be pumping the gravity sewer into a treatment facility and then pumping that further into disposal. So the grade of that pipe likely still heads off to the west, so that's as flexible as possible, but that doesn't mean that's where the disposal system would go, if that helps.
Does that work? Great, thank you. And thanks, Jeff. Okay, Bailey Minnick has another one for us.
Yep, hold on here. Let's get.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Get my while I'm doing this. I get my laser pointer here before I start talking. Okay, so the next one is the Humble Meadows subdivision. The property here outlined in red is what we're talking about. So here's 3rd and Clements. Here's Spurgeon that comes in, and we're up here in the Humbles and South 7th Street West at the end of that road. So this is a minor subdivision request for 2 residential lots on a little over 2.5 acres. This is a re-subdivision of a residential lot from the double R acre subdivision that was originally approved back in 1968. Both parcels will be used for residential purposes and served by individual septic systems. There are no variants requested with this project as well. This is the proposed layout. And I have this slide come up a couple of times while I'm going through criteria, so there'll be another chance to review it. As we went through before, the review criteria comes out of state law and our local subdivision regulations, and I'll touch on most of these. So the property is currently zoned rural residential small agriculture 1 acre, or RRS1, and it's also within the target range overlay district. The RRS1 has a maximum residential density of 1 dwelling unit per acre with a minimum lot size of 1 acre for a residential building type. And the property is subject to the Missoula County Land Use Element from 2019, which is an amendment to our growth policy from 2016. And it has a designation of rural residential and small agriculture. This density, or this recommended, this designation recommends a residential density of between 1 dwelling unit per 1 acre to 2 dwelling units per 1 acre. Also, the property, as I said, it's in the boundaries of the 2010 Target Range Neighborhood Plan, which also gives a land use designation of 1 dwelling unit per acre. Subdivisions are required to reasonably mitigate any adverse impacts to agriculture or agricultural water user facilities. There's no food production currently occurring on site, and the property has not historically been utilized for agricultural production. The soils on the property are classified as prime farmland if irrigated, and there are current agricultural operations located to the north and south of the property, as well as across Humble Road, not large ones, but still agricultural operations. And so we are recommending as a condition of approval that future property owners are notified of agricultural practices in the area, and those language has been provided in the proposed covenants for future property owners. The property is served by an on-site domestic well, which does have an existing water right. The water right will remain with the existing home on lot 2, right here. New water rights will be filed with the DNRC upon completion of the proposed new well that will serve the new lot. There are no known existing agricultural water rights that would need to be transferred or abandoned with this project. Direct access to both lots will be provided by Humble Road over here, which is an existing county maintained public road with a paved surface width of approximately 30 feet. The paved road includes a non-motorized bicycle and pedestrian path that's known, at least on the property info system, as the Spurgeon Road Trail. It's not a separated bike path, it's basically just part of the roadway. No new roads are proposed with the subdivision. Legal and physical access would be through the existing driveway here that will be converted to a shared driveway. Since the lots will access Humble Road from the shared approach, the shared driveway is considered a road under our subdivision standards until at the point where the driveways split. And so therefore, they are showing the proposed shared driveway to be located within a 24-foot wide shared access easement, and it will be constructed to a paved surface width of 20 feet with 2-foot shoulders as a condition of approval. There is an existing non-motorized, as I said, pedestrian and bike path adjacent to Humble Road, and that does connect up here. Sorry, my screen's out of the way. That does connect up here to the 7th Street Trail that's located along the northern property line. It's not on the subject property, it's adjacent to the property. Minor subdivisions are not required to have any pedestrian facilities installed as part of the subdivision regulations. The lots are under 20 acres in size and therefore will have to go through sanitation review. As I said, the proposed subdivision will include individual septic systems for each lot and include the new well. The property does contain high groundwater that's within approximately 6 feet of the ground surface. And I'll go into that here in a minute as well. The proposed home site and new drain field for Lot 1 will be located at the highest elevation point on the property due to the presence of this high groundwater. Missoula County subdivision regulations also exempt minor subdivisions from parkland dedication requirements. However, just as a note, the original WR Acres subdivision dedicated a county park directly west of the property, and actually this area here is part of that dedication. So it actually does butt up against a park, and I believe Dee Dee from PTOL told me today it's like the WR Acres part. It is public access. It basically connects to more county and fish, wildlife and parks lands that are adjacent to the river. So
There are so many of these little.
there are,
things.
yeah, they're everywhere. And here's one from 1968. So it was a surprise to me too. There was a fire hazard assessment completed for this subdivision. It returned a score of 28, which indicates a low risk for fire hazard on this property. As I mentioned with the previous subdivision, they are required under our regulations to pick a fire suppression system. The property or the developer has decided to require the installation of fire sprinkler systems for all new residential structures, which is really the new house. And plans for installation of those fire sprinklers would be approved by Missoula Rural Fire during the building permit review. But we do have a condition of approval requiring the notification to this the future lot owner that is placed on the face of the plat as well as in the covenants. So multiple places for them to know that that is a requirement if they choose to purchase the property. Vegetation on the property consists of native grasses. There are some larger trees adjacent to Humble Road around the existing residence. Species identified in the vicinity of the subdivision, mainly white-tailed deer. Obviously, it is close to the river and public land. So within the section of this area, it does include, black bear has been spotted, mountain lions, pheasants, things like that. It is it's the river corridor. So it is known that animals will utilize this area. But the property is located within an existing subdivision and surrounded by residential development. So really no further impacts to wildlife habitat beyond the current level is anticipated. And there was comment from Five Valley Audubon's basically stating that this is longstanding residential use, has been incremental development, it's lost its habitat at its time, but basically through property owners purchasing the land and planting and landscaping and things like that, those habitats can come back. There was also comment received from FWP that they do support the plans for residential development in this area to accommodate our housing needs. They recommended the living with wildlife covenants be placed on the property with the proposed development. Those are shown in the proposed covenants as well. Floodplain, steep slopes. There's no floodplain on the property. There's no steep slopes greater than 25%. There is a small area in the northwest corner up in this area that does contain, or it does shown as the erosion hazard area as part of the 2021 channel migration zone study. So we did get comment from Missoula Water Quality identifying this area, and they would recommend as much separation as possible between structures, drain fields, and other areas between those and the erosion hazard area to just protect the river and infrastructure. So the subdivision is identifying the building site outside of that erosion hazard area and attempting to locate the structure as close as possible to the road to minimize that impact. As I mentioned, the subdivision does contain areas of high groundwater, and this was monitored during the 2021-2022 season by the Missoula County Health Department. It's approximately 6 feet below ground surface. So as a condition of approval, we are proposing prohibiting the installation of basements in future residential construction. We did have comment from the Missoula County Floodplain Administrator identifying some inconsistencies between the application and the groundwater monitoring report. Basically, the groundwater monitoring report said, yes, there should be no basements here, and that, potential new monitoring or variances could change that. The problem is you can't ask for a variance to subdivision after the fact. So we do have a recommendation that language is made clear in the covenants and that it is strictly prohibiting basements. So they wouldn't be able to come back after the fact and ask or do that at building permit time and change that. Let's see. I think, oops, I have trouble with this. So we did mail notification of this meeting and the project to property owners on June 23rd. We also posted the project on the Missoula County Voice page. I had one comment that came in that was included as part of the packet, identifying concerns with that existing parking area that's along 7th Street, and wondering about FWP's future maintenance of it. And mainly, I just want to point out that area is offsite. It's not part of this project. And actually, I was able to find, with Dee Dee's wonderful help from PTOL, that parking area and the trail, it came in as an agreement between FWP and the property owner to the north in 1992. So that's actually been there for quite a long time. And all of that is done. It is in the right of way, but it's all with FWP. So it's outside of this process as well. But otherwise, staff is recommending approval, and I have a proposed motion, and I'm not sure if IMEG is on. I feel like I saw the property owner on the call, but I wasn't sure if IMEG was on the call. Let's see, I can.
Hey Bailey, it's myself and Paul with IMEG.
Oh, awesome. Okay, sorry, I see like 21 people, so I couldn't find you guys.
Not
Great.
a problem.
Yeah, please speak to this if you would like.
Okay, I was curious if I could share my screen. I do have just something to put up on the screen as I give a brief overview.
Let me find you, Tamara, and I think I can promote you here.
Okay, thank you. In the meantime, thanks everybody for, first of all, compiling the staff report, Bailey, and hearing our project. Again, it's myself, Tamara Ross, and I'm joined here with Paul Forstein from IMEG. And yes, Todd Coots, the property owner, is on the call with us. We're all available to answer questions. Thank you.
You should be good there, Tamara, to present.
Oh, thank you, Bailey. So I guess to start with, our application, as indicated in Bailey's staff report, is RRS1 with a maximum residential density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. The vicinity map here shows that we are southeast of this Kelly Island fishing access on the corner of 7th Street and Humble. And proposed lot 1 is over 1 acre in size, as well as proposed lot 2. So as she mentioned, we have no variance requests in our application. I kind of wanted to go over the sewer and water because we did have high water. We are very similar to those properties around us with individual septic and water. We do have to abide by the sanitation and the DNRC predetermination application, which is in our submittal packet. And we are proposing to remain under 10 acre feet, which is allowed per year through those regulatory actions and statutes. Our non-motorized and motorized facilities were very nicely summarized by Bailey. I would like to briefly go over them because it did include one public comment regarding the Kelly Access parking lot. The property has existing access directly from Humble Road and will be shared via a shared access easement, and will be built up until it splits as county road standards, which is 24 in width, but the surface width will be different than the easement. We're proposing a 24 width access easement. So there's no additional concerns regarding than what has already historically been here. Maybe visibility would be a concern for that public comment, or maybe additional parking spots would have been taken up for the Kelly Access Island, which would not be a problem here. We do have 2 non-motorized trails in the vicinity. As Bailey mentioned, they are mostly just portions of the road. They're not necessarily different individual paved pathways. I believe they were called bike ped shoulderways. There are no improvements proposed for these, as this is a minor subdivision. In addition to that, there was a concern, or I would assume it would be included in the concern about the Kelly access. There is an easement to the north of proposed lot 1 that is 10 foot in width. And also we have to abide by building setbacks. So maybe any visual impacts to that trail would be mitigated through those zoning requirements, as well as that dedicated easement to the north along the northern property line. We also have, with one additional residential lot, a maximum of 8 trips per day. So I'm hoping that this additional information could maybe address that public comment. And if there are any other concerns, please let us know. I think it would also be important to address that there's no additional parking on the roadway as well. I should have mentioned that previously. And the WUI was kind of a concern for a fire apparatus, which I believe that we have addressed with this shared access easement. I guess if, Paul, did you have anything to add before I close out the brief presentation?
No, thank you, Tam. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, sure thing. I will stop sharing my screen. It was very brief. I just wanted to address that public comment mostly, and I know that there's probably going to be more questions in regard to this shared access easement. Maybe it's not seen as often in your proposals, and you're welcome to ask us any questions as needed.
Great. Do we have any public comment or anybody else would like to speak to this?
So no question about shared access easement. Bailey, you had mentioned, I can't remember, was it in the covenants? There was some bit about the notification of property owners regarding future agricultural operations. Could you hit that again?
Yeah, it's basically, we have some standard language that we recommend putting, and I think they actually already have it in their proposed covenants. But basically it's just a notification to buyers of a lot in the subdivision, whether it's the existing home that's someday sold or the new lot that's created, that basically just says, hey, we're putting you on notice that there are agricultural operations existing within the area that create noise or have animals or, whatever impacts could be. And that kind of you're just on notice that you're buying a lot, that those are pre-existing conditions, right? That occurs. And just because you buy a lot in the subdivision doesn't mean that has to stop. And so it's just a notification that we put on when in areas that we know that there's kind of already historical kind of uses occurring.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Queue up the motion.
I move to approve unless there's different language than on the. Okay, I'd move to approve the Humble Meadows subdivision based on the findings and facts and conclusions of law in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
All right. Any further public comment?
I love proposals where there are no variance requests.
I know. These have all been really straightforward so far today. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to call for a 2-minute break.
Okay.
I object. No, no, okay.
Is our own Steve Nide.
Thank you, Commissioner. Steve Nide, County Surveyor's Office. This is the second hearing for a road petition, a petition to alter a portion of Blue Mountain Road. Juanita and I were the designated viewers, historically called viewers. Historically, these were called viewers' reports. I like to call them road investigation reports. It's more consistent with the state law. The date of our investigation was June 12th, 2023. And for the record, here is the text of the report. At approximately 10 a.m., the investigators visited the site of the road petition. All directly affected landowners have signed the petition and agreed to the alteration. This alteration will establish a right-of-way of record for the existing road and provide the necessary width to accommodate a non-motorized walkway along the south side of the road. We recommend the petitioner's request be granted. Are there any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Good, I have a dentist appointment pretty soon.
There we go.
I would be happy to make a motion if, unless there's public comment, I guess.
Do we have any public comment on this?
The landowner, primary landowner who's being affected by this, I see is on the call, Barry Strauss. Barry, if you want to make a comment, go ahead, raise your hand. Or if you're dialing in, *5, I think it is.
*6. Barry, we're happy to hear from you if you'd like to speak to this.
Or not.
Barry might be good. Okay.
Okay. What was that, Cheryl?
Okay.
Okay, last chance, Barry, if you want to unmute yourself and say anything, otherwise we will move forward. Okay, I would move that we, oh, there we go.
There we go, okay.
Sorry, I had seen all the participants and that I was able to see myself before on the list, but I couldn't. No, I don't really have any comments to make. I just thought I had the option to listen in and thought I would, and I thought that maybe Steve might have to show a illustration, but as far as the property owner, the primary property owner, 4474 Blue Mountain Road, which is Jane Freeland Property Trust, we have no concerns. We're quite in favor of this change.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Barry. So I would go ahead and move that we approve the petition to alter a portion of Blue Mountain Road located from the intersection of Tiberius Drive to the intersection with Forest Hill Lane line within Section 2, Township 12 North, Range 20 West.
Second.
All right, any public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Barry.
luck. Good luck at the dentist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Glenn Ingram to talk to us about the Wilson family transfer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Glenn Ingram, planner with PDS. I'll be here today presenting the Wilson family transfer. The applicants being Amber and John Wilson, and the representative, Montana Northwest Company. This is the property in question. It's 9850 Anderson Road. The acreage is 48.6 acres. And on the image here, that red boundary does show the full extent of the single piece of property. The boundary in the middle is a cadastral error.
Glenn, could you, oh, I think I saw Deer Creek on there. That just placed.
Yeah, this,
Okay,
so
got it,
this is
got
this is out east of
Yep.
Bonner, north
Tura.
of Interstate.
Yeah, thank you.
The proposal today is to utilize the family transfer exemption to divide the 48.6 acre subject property into 2 total tracts. And then this is a correction on my part to information I presented you earlier this week. So the applicant's daughter, Lillian Wilson, is to receive a 1 acre tract. The applicants, Amber and John, will retain the remaining 47.6 acre tract, and then each proposed tract contains an existing residence. This is an exhibit showing existing conditions. The 2 existing residents are highlighted in red there. This showcases the existing zoning. So the residences are under our rural residential small agriculture, and then the hillside and the timber is going to be Ag 40. So we reviewed 19 general evasion criteria and 8 rebuttal presumptions. Of those, 2 were of note. The first being that the claimant's daughter, Lillian Pearl Wilson, will be 17 as of July 19, 2023. And the second being that the current tract shares a common road, Anderson Street, with platted lots in the LaPointe Addition subdivision located west of the subject property. But as I earlier mentioned, these are existing residences with existing access. Exhibit of proposed conditions. So this will be tract 1. This will be the remaining after the transfer, 47.6 acres going to Amber and John Wilson. The transferred tract, 1 acre going to Lillian Wilson. And then both tracts will contain an existing residence. And so now we're going to go ahead and do the questions. I think John is here to answer questions. If you could go ahead and state your name for the record.
John.
If you could turn your microphone on, please. Thank you.
John R. Wilson.
Thank you. First, did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
No.
Do you or your transferees intend to transfer the property within the next year?
No.
Have you talked to anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
No.
And then questions to ask if the recipient is a minor. Do you have a trust established for the child to hold the property?
The trust will be established after approval.
Who is the trustee of the trust and who controls it?
My wife and I.
If the property is sold, will the money be held in trust?
Yes.
And then our proposed motion today is to recommend. And then I'm here for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Wilson. So will your daughter, does she currently live in, will she be immediately upon the transfer be occupying the new house?
Actually, Glenn, can you get closer to the microphone? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
She currently lives with us, and our goal is to establish this. So she has a piece of Montana once she starts her college and career here in Montana and stuff.
Okay, so she has made a commitment to actually live on this property
Yes.
after.
Yes.
Go. So my understanding of the family transfer is this is to prevent people from evading subdivision. If you subdivide, you get a new chunk of land and you sell it. You're all set. With family transfer, you give one of your family members a chunk of land and they live in it. It's not about a way to get to creating a new parcel that you can sell.
Correct.
So I'm wondering, she's 17, living with y'all, things are going good, and you own both homes. Why do this now? Why you could set her up with a piece of Montana 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now. It's not going anywhere. So why now?
Just preparing for the future. I mean, so she'll always have a piece of Montana. Who knows what it will have in 10 years here?
You mean you feel like your parcel is vulnerable in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen with my career ever. And, so my daughter always has a place here in Montana.
So I, just to add on what Josh is saying, and this would be consistent with how we've addressed these in the past, would be at the point in time that your daughter is an adult, that she is ready to actually make a commitment to settle on your property. For me, that would be the ideal time to propose a family transfer. And if you're feeling as if, well, you don't know what the future holds for your property, I guess closer to that point in time where you're feeling like you want to move somewhere else, that again would be the point in time where I would think would be more appropriate for a family transfer rather than right now. And I'm not questioning whether or not your daughter will actually live on the property, but we have seen a number of instances in the past where we've gone through this process, and within just a few years, it didn't work out for the individuals who had come before us, and the property got flipped, which kind of goes against the spirit of what it is that we're trying to accomplish with family transfers. So as long as you own the entire tract, I'd say I'm not going to presuppose what my colleagues here might think, but I would say hang on to it. And at the point in time where your daughter is really 4 or 5 years from now, when she's graduated from high school, in college, ready to settle down, come back before us and let's transfer it then.
Yeah. Alternatively, if you're concerned something could change, you might need to get some resources in a hurry. You could go through minor subdivision, which admittedly is more expensive, but it's the appropriate tool to divide property. If you are thinking you might have to sell, that's the right tool. And I'm sorry to deliver the news. I know that's more money, but if you did that, if you went through minor subdivision, then you could give it to your daughter if you want, or you could sell it if you want, or you could live there and sell the other one. You would have every array of option at your disposal. If you go through family transfer, basically you're making a promise that she's going to live on this piece and you're going to live on that piece, and that's how it's going to be. And you may want more options than that. And what Dave did a great job just explaining it. But in the past, we've said, oh, okay, your kid's 15, you put it into a trust, we understand. And then a year later, they sell the property, evading subdivision, which has an effect on all the people who live nearby. Subdivision is to protect the folks who live nearby, to make sure every different one of these conditions that Bailey was rattling off get met. They're there for good reason, to protecting other folks. And I'm certain that you have integrity and you're here with the truth today. We've just been burned on this before. Just why I'd want to know, could you wait till she's over 18? Could you wait till she's committed to living there? And if you're feeling like you're in a pinch, like, man, we might need to take some action, I'd go through minor subdivision. And then you have every option available at your disposal in terms of what you do with either of those pieces of land. You can give them, sell them, do whatever you want.
I guess on that same note, you don't hear, I'm thinking, what if there's more laws and stuff that come about? Because every year we make more laws and more rules and regulations. So, I mean, here I am at a point in my life where I can do this for my daughter and give her this and get this established. Now, I mean, I've been in this neighborhood for 20 some years. I moved from one house down to the next. You know, I lived in my first house ever for 12 years, and I moved 500 yards and I bought this piece of property, and I'm committed to be here. I guess I'm just trying to establish for my children a trust and get things going.
And you said that trust isn't established yet?
No, my attorney advised us not to establish the trust until we've see what happened here.
Well, I guess the one thing I'd say as far as family transfers, and John, you know state law better than any of us. I've not seen a whole lot of movement to restrict family transfers. And if anything, it's probably either been static or leaning towards contemplating making them more easily accessible.
I thought the legislature now made family transfers possible in platted subdivisions. Didn't that come out of this session?
Yeah, that is one thing that came out of this session. There was, I believe, there was legislation that would prohibit the governing body from denying a family transfer to a minor. That didn't pass, but that's, you know, that's out there. I'm wondering, and this is just a thought, you know, the law requires you to just grant a family transfer application or deny it. Those are your two options. You can't condition it. But this gentleman's daughter will be 18 in just over a year. And perhaps and if you approve of the family transfer today, I believe our subdivision regulations allow them 2 years then to file the survey showing the division that's been granted here. Perhaps he would give you an assurance that he won't file that survey memorializing the family transfer until his daughter turns 18, and then he wouldn't have to go through the process again. I mean, that's just something you could consider. I don't know.
But it is cleaner if Glenn just waits a year until she's 18.
Yeah, I would think so, or till such a time as she's actually committed to living on the property.
There's no way to do what you described, John, with any
certainty.
Yes, with certainty. Is there some way to do that with certainty?
No, we would just have to take Mr. Wilson's word. We wouldn't be able to make that a condition.
And that hasn't worked out very well. We don't have a great track record of.
Well, Commissioner Vero, I don't believe we've ever done. This would be the first time we just, you know, had a gentleman's agreement on the record.
Oh, I understand. Okay,
like this.
we've been burned in the past.
We've been
never
burned
had
on minors and then selling the property.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I know it's frustrating, Glenn, but I feel like the right thing to do would be to wait a year, or if you need to, gives you time to do your trust so that there is more assurance for this body and for your neighbors.
Well, and I would also say, if you came back a year from now, we'd ask the same question: is your daughter going to occupy the property anytime soon? And so I think she'll graduate from college. Presumably she may or may not go into college, but at whatever point in time, you're still the owner of the property and she has a commitment to live on the property. I think that would be the time to come back before us. And I honestly don't see no assurances. We've given up predicting what the state legislature will do long ago, but my guess is that there will not be any major changes to family transfer law that would prevent you from doing exactly what you've brought before us today. But I think that would be the appropriate time to come back.
If anything, as John was saying, the family transfer laws have become more forgiving and less restrictive over time. So I can't imagine a near-term future where our state legislature would want to make it more difficult to do family transfers. They're actually going the other way, making it easier. That's what they did in this last session.
I guess my whole point is though, why, here I am, spending more money again to redo this. When, as this gentleman here states, we could put something there in writing to where we wait till she's 18 to do it. I mean, I guess I don't understand what, and with the neighbors that you're saying, I mean, we're not establishing anything new. Both properties are there. Both residents are there. It's just my daughter will occupy it once she's out of school and stays here in Missoula. It's an option we really want to have here for her to stay here and have a place in Peace of Montana.
Right, and we get that. I think what John, our deputy county attorney, was saying here is that there's no way we can draft a legally binding agreement at this point in time to delay. Well, I'm putting words into your mouth, John, but we cannot make any conditions on this. It would simply be a gentleman's agreement, if you will, that you would follow through with what we're discussing here today. And while again, as Josh mentioned, we have no doubt, no reason to doubt your integrity or what you're saying. We have been burned in this sort of situation in the past. So I know it's not the.
So you're going to tell me that when I come back when she's 18, it's going to be granted then?
No, I'm not telling you that. What I am saying is, if you were to come back at the point in time where she is committed to living in the residence there, then I think the likelihood that we would grant it is a whole lot more than even coming back in a year and she's still in school and unsure if she's going to be living in that residence. What I am saying also is that as long as you own the entire property, there's a house there that she can live in, and it's the division of the property that's the kicker. And if what you or she is contemplating is keeping your options open so you can sell one of those parcels and garner as much revenue as possible for her education or whatever, a minor subdivision is the process to go through, not family transfer.
That's what I would recommend. Then you have every option at your disposal. And I'm not sure who gave you the advice to do this. Given her status as a minor, I would hope whoever told you to head this direction would say you should go through minor subdivision, or wait till she's not a minor and have her commit to living on this in this house and on her 1 acre parcel. I'm sorry to deliver bad news.
John.
Mr. Wilson, have you inquired about the property tax consequence of dividing the land now? I look, what I know about property taxes isn't very much, but it may be that you're going to pay less in property taxes on this parcel undivided and waiting until another time to divide it, than dividing it now and having two different parcels for purposes of assessment.
Well, it's already taxed as two residents
But it may be taxed
in the parts
higher as two separate pieces of land. I don't know that. I mean, I'm just kind of guessing. There may be a higher property tax consequence. I know intuitively there shouldn't be any difference because nothing's changing except you're dividing the property. But it may be that you save some property tax in the interim. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I think it's both taxed as both residents, and it is taxed as two residents now.
Do you have tenants in one of them?
Yes.
So would you be imagining asking these tenants to leave and getting your daughter in there?
Within a year.
Any other questions or
Questions or comments?
Okay.
I'm ready for.
Thanks
Thank you, Mr.
for,
Walter.
for your comments.
I would move that we deny the request by Amber and John Wilson to utilize the family transfer exemption as presented in the exemption application and affidavit.
Second.
Any comment? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that, sir. Glenn, you got the Gallatin State subdivision coming up next.
This is the, again, Glenn Ingram, PDS. This is the Gallatin Estates subdivision phasing plan extension. The consultant on this project is IMEG. The location of the property south of Waldo Road, north of the interstate. It's unaddressed. So some background, the Gallatin Estates subdivision was approved as a phased 70-lot subdivision subject to 32 conditions of approval on April 10th, 2013. Through multiple extensions, 3 phases were due for submittal at the end of June 2023. And again, 2023 for phase 2 and then 2025 for phase 3. The county subdivision regulations allow for an extension of at least 1, but no more than 3 years, which applies to the entire subdivision. And so applying a full 3-year extension to phase 1 would establish a June 30th, 2026 final plat submittal deadline. So the proposal today, the applicant seeks to extend the phase 1 final plat submittal deadline to June 30th, 2026, the phase 2 final plat submittal deadline to June 30th, 2026, and then the phase 3 final plat submittal deadline to June 30th, 2026. So our findings are the modified phasing timeline does comply with subdivision regulations. The original preliminary plat approval and conditions are still valid and relevant. In this area, site conditions remain relatively unchanged from the time of approval. And the surrounding area is experiencing increased development, but these changes in the Y area, including the Waldo Road realignment, have been anticipated and planned for the last 10 years. So this is the current phasing plan. And this is the proposed, the only change being the updated dates.
Great.
And then today, we just propose the recommendation of approving the extension for all phases to June 30th, 2026. And then I do believe we have on
Paul.
Yeah, representation from IMEG today to answer any questions.
Thanks, Glenn. Paul, do you want to speak to this?
I'll just say that I'm here today, Paul Forsting from IMEG Corporation, Senior Planner, to help answer any questions or comments that might come up. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Nope. Glad to see housing going in at the Y, Paul.
I move to approve the phasing plan extension, extending the phase 1, 2, and 3 for the final plat submittal deadline to June 30th, 2026. Oh, but we forgot public comment, so.
Oh, I'll do
Sorry.
that after.
Okay.
You're good.
I'll second.
Any public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Paul. Good luck getting this done.
And let the record note that local government is not delaying this. This was a request that has come before us.
I didn't want to say that because I know Paul's going to get aggravated at me if I could. I always say that, but
I was channeling the inner
thank you.
slot.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I believe we're done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.